Rory,
Hi
good to
guys.
see you. And Rene, is this our first time meeting?
I think so, George.
Yeah, your face looks familiar, but I've probably seen you on on something or other. I'm just gonna reset my computer here a little bit. All right.
Hello, hello Rene.
Hello, Rory.
How you doing? How are you? Very nice to meet you.
I'm doing fine, thank you. And
Hello,
how are you?
Natalie. Hello, George.
Hello.
Yeah, very good, thank you.
Okay. So
So
Brazil is your last name or your location, Rory?
Yeah, that's certainly the last name. Yeah, I kind of, I only wish I was in Brazil at the minute for some nice sunny weather. I'm here in Dublin, Ireland,
Ah, okay.
but the sun is shining, so it's all good.
That's good. Yeah.
it's
Just not so hot. Not so hot.
It's probably easier for us in America, Natalie and me, to recognize Rory's accent than it is for you, Rene.
Oh yeah,
Absolutely.
it sounds English to me. It's all the same.
Where are you from, Rene?
I'm from Holland, the
Okay.
Netherlands. Yeah.
Very good.
But when I'm listening carefully, I can distinguish the accents.
Absolutely. Well,
Yeah,
great to meet you.
Natalie, do you want to admit people when you see them?
Yep, I am.
There's someone just looks like they're waiting in the room.
No, they're joining.
Okay, all right, good. So we'll wait for this next person to come on board.
Yeah, that's perfect, George.
And so just to bring you all up to speed, let me just see. Why isn't he coming on board, I wonder? I'm going to click admit as well, Natalie, because he doesn't seem to be coming on. So, oh, here we go.
Yeah.
Hey, Jonathan. So Rene and Rory, we met Jonathan last time, a few weeks ago. We are expecting a number of other people, but we'll see. You know, whoever shows up is the right group, is what we've learned a long time ago. And Rory's been talking about doing a Golden Civilization and kind of flirting with it with his church and with his community for some time. Rene, you've also been emailing us about how can we get this going really more in the Netherlands. So I'm really excited to have you both here and see what brings you here this time, what you'd like to get out of this particular time together. And we're getting Alan. Oh, that's a familiar name. So would either of you like to share, just starting off, what you'd...
Yeah, if it's possible, I would like to start because I have this other Zoom meeting at about an hour from now, and I think I will meet George and Kathy there, or either or one of them.
I'm gonna sign in late for it, Rene. So,
okay.
but you'll meet Kathy, and it's great to start off with that group. That'd be wonderful. Yeah.
Okay.
That's my mindfulness group. Yeah.
Yeah. I missed it last time because of the time.
Yes.
Thing.
Yes.
I misjudged it by an hour, so
now you get 2 for 1. Great.
Good deal.
Yeah. Well, actually, George, you mentioned how can we get things started in the Netherlands. I already did a Zoom Golden Civilization talk with a small group of people, and it was really, really interesting. It was a group of 3 sisters and a brother, but they went very separate ways in their life. One is a professor at Nijenrode, and it's like one of the best private schools in Holland. The other one owns a restaurant. The third sister is the initiative taker of United Economy. It's like a circular money system.
Yeah.
So alternative money. And I missed one. Oh yeah, and the youngest sister is in mental health care.
Wow.
So it was a very interesting conversation because
Yeah.
it was the first time I did one, and I figured it to be really practical and along the lines of what I've been seeing in your conversations, which I looked afterwards through Natalie's links.
Oh, great.
On practical items, and also things like we all want peace. To say it generally, you all want peace, and we would like equality. But this conversation took a whole different road, so to speak, and it went from the get-go. It went spiritual. So it was really surprising for me also, and a bit of a challenge to because I was hosting and at the same time using the Zoom whiteboard to make notes. But it was really nice talk, and we are going to do a second one, but because it took a spiritual almost diversion from what I was expecting. Yeah, it was really interesting.
Oh, it sounds incredible, Rene, really incredible. And I've seen that. And with a smaller group, of course, you're almost more likely to get more difference because you're not bringing in kind of everybody. And so one or two can influence more than others sometimes. Yeah. But I think that's wonderful, Rene. And when you came, did you get all the way to action steps and commitments?
Yeah, we came to action steps, but it kind of, there was energy in it, and they were committed to action steps, but there were more inwardly directed action steps in the way of the basic conclusion from that talk we got was more if people would change inside for the good, then there would be no need for the system to change, because if all the people in the system would make that diversion, there is no other possibility than the system to change. Yeah. So it was more of commitment to do inner work for each one for themselves, and sometimes come together and see the results of that inner work. I hope that makes sense.
Yeah, it does. It does. And what a beautiful frame for the experience. And and I've often been stunned by these Golden Civilization conversations. There have been hundreds of them that have happened all over the world now, and I've participated in probably 100 of them, maybe a bit more. And so I've seen quite a few, but by no means the whole spectrum. Yeah. And one of the things that always struck me was when I started off, it all came out of this book, the Golden Civilization book, upside down. And I wrote the book because I'd already written a book on mindfulness, and I thought, gosh, there's still something wrong with our structures, or we'd see wisdom at the top of every structure, every hierarchy of power. We'd see it, and it would permeate all the way down. And so I've been working both internally around the spiritual stuff that you're talking about, but also externally. What can we do that would change the whole structure, all structures that emerge, all systems that emerge? Are there things we could do systemically? So I also, I've had experiences where we come to the obstacles phase of the Golden Civilization. And one of the things that has struck me over and over again, and Rory, I don't know if you've had enough experience with this, and welcome Miriam, nice to see you. One of the things that struck me in the obstacles was how often, how many times the major obstacles that people bring up are the inner obstacles. And in particular, the three that come up over and over and over again are fear and greed, and then some form, often multiple forms, of prejudice. And in America, that prejudice comes up nowadays largely as racism. So that's a huge theme in our conversations right now. But in India, it's not racism at all, but prejudice comes up. You've got the caste system, you've got different religions, and same thing in Africa. You'll see different kind of tribal stuff or political extremes, but prejudice, this belittling of others internally, and so I was really struck by that as well. That so much people are focusing on that, but it gives you hope as well. It's clearly important to address the external structures in that chart of obstacles, all big chart with a circle in the middle for inner obstacles. Clearly important to visit those structures. Yeah. One of the things that I learned as well from these groups is that whatever the group is sharing, that's where you want to go. You know,
oh yeah,
it's not yours, it's not mine, it's the group. And what a great thing, because now they've got energy around that, and those commitments at the end. You get action steps and you move to commitments, and it's the commitments that you really come back to first thing at the beginning of the next meeting. So I encourage you to bring them back together.
Oh yes.
And see if you could bring some other people in, and just go further and just welcome what you learned from them, what their passions were for change.
Yes, I will, and I know there will be a follow-up, maybe later in this year, because in Holland the COVID situation is getting a bit, you know, the number of people contaminated is not the right word, but you know, who have corona is increasing, and the government is leaning towards some kind of lockdown situation. And then actually I really love it, to be honest. Because you see everybody, you know, slowing down and taking their time and thinking about what they want to do with their lives, and it's really bad for business, but it's very good for people.
Yeah, and in the long run, it's good for business, because we need to. You know, this whole thing. America. I've studied this deeply because I got pneumonia over the Christmas holidays, and I've never quite fully recovered my energy. In fact, I'm only at about 50% I have enormous fatigue. And so I've wondered if in fact what I got was COVID before people were actually identifying it and talking about it, because I still have very significant fatigue. So I studied it, and we should have stopped this in America in January. There was enough information. We should have stopped it. So anyway, I'm lockdown is a way to begin to get it back under control. And you know, I've got so many Dutch friends. My heart goes out to you, and I love the slowdown. You know, you guys are very rapid paced.
Yes, we are.
Like us in America too. Yeah. Wonderful. Well, I want to welcome Rory and Miriam as well. And Miriam's new to this, but she's had a long conversation with Natalie and with our other kind of staff, kind of head of staff in some way, Laura. And Rory's been engaged in a number of these conversations, so I'm really looking forward to what he has to share and what he's coming back with. And maybe we'll go to him first and then bring Miriam in. But I'm very curious, Miriam. I've read, you know, the blog and seen, you know, what you folks are doing, and your work is very impressive. So I think both Rene and Rory will love to hear a little bit there as well. But Rory, tell me what brings you back this time, and what,
and great to be here, George. I was at my desk here a couple of weeks ago, and I realised I missed one, and I was so annoyed at myself. Don't ask me how, but I missed it. And I was at the end. I think Natalie, you sent the summary, and I was going, oh. So I really do enjoy these sessions. Get a lot from them. And George, you know, with my background as a financial planner, I started to train within the Kinder Institute early, probably February 2020. And more, I've brought in life planning into my financial advisory business. We're having more and more success, greater conversations. It's a fantastic relationship, I would say, that I have with existing clients, where in the past, guys probably just touched the surface of their lives. And by being able to use my skills now that I've got from the Kinder Institute, we're having great conversations, and we're making a massive impact on people and family lives, which is fantastic. I always have a massive interest in a golden civilization. I've attended a good few sessions at this stage. As George said, I had a contact in one of the inner city churches in Dublin. Didn't quite come off. They got busy. I got busy. So I'm back here today to say, okay, ask a few questions around, okay, how can I possibly grow a golden civilization? And I'm thinking of a couple of things, George, around maybe it's something that I can talk to more and more of my clients about without kind of muddying the waters there. Or maybe it's something that I can do via my professional network, that is LinkedIn and everything else. What else to say, guys? Yeah, Rene, we're here in Dublin, Ireland. We're gone back into a level 3 lockdown since last weekend. So that basically is pubs, restaurants, cafes, everything closed now. And basically you got to work from home. And it's funny, this time around, it's not as severe as the last lockdown, but it is a lockdown. And I can just see in the main, people are going, this is something we're kind of living with now. We're living with COVID, and there's certainly more calm and less stress and panic, which is great to see.
Yeah, excellent to see. And I'm so glad you guys are doing it, your governments are doing it, because I because of my health, I've been following it so closely, and the dangers of it to anyone, including our kids, and the long-lasting possibility of damage to the body is significant and not something you want to play with.
And George, the numbers here, the numbers here over the last in Ireland, and in particular Dublin as the capital city, the numbers have really jumped for that age group between age 15 to 35, would you believe? Massive numbers.
You know, the schools going back, I've got two 16-year-old daughters, and they're both, their schools are both starting again. And I've got bigger concerns, but we communicate. It's one of the things is very important in our family. And so we've had lots of talks, and we're holding them back. And they're, they'd rather go back to school, but we're holding them to be virtual, and they understand. They've been very lovely. Really, they understand the logic of it and where we're going.
It's difficult, George. Yeah, it's difficult. My young daughters are that bit younger. They're 9, 6, and 4. So here in Ireland, to get them back to primary school has been quite straightforward. The bigger struggle is in society, as you say there, George, and we have it here in Ireland. Secondary school is it's a different ball game altogether. Different ball game,
and 9, 6, and 4. Tough. That's a lot of homeschooling if you do it at home, and it's
So we're lucky they're back to school in the last 3 weeks or so, and they love it. And I have to say, all credit to the teachers, the school, the whole lot. They're doing a fantastic job, and it's great.
Well, stay safe, man. Stay safe. One of my daughters in the school she would be going back to, but she's staying home and doing it all virtual. One of them already has a COVID case, and they've now quarantined 17 people in a pod around that case. And so we're, you just, gosh. Well, anyway, Rory,
we got to look after each other, George. Yeah.
In regard to the golden civilization, let me give you a couple of thoughts, and then I want to open to Miriam. I've done golden civilization conversations in numerous client events for financial advisors, clients, and those clients largely are middle income to upper middle income, largely, but some of them go down into the working class arena, and those client events were just kind of offered to the clients. Here's what we're doing, and you could do it. You could say, you've all been connecting with me around this new life planning stuff, and I want to introduce you. And Rory, it's possible that you'd get me or Laura or possibly Natalie to pitch in. Certainly Mary Zimmerman is eager to pitch in. But if you were to open it, there's a possibility of getting some really experienced deliverers of the golden civilization conversation as part of that and part of the leadership structure in that particular conversation, and to offer it as a plum to your clients, if that's a terminology you use in Ireland, but as something. So I did the first one. Gosh, when was it, Natalie? I don't think you were here. That was way back with Opal Group in New York. And
tell me this, George, when you did that, and we'll talk again, when you did that particular event, it was a client event, obviously. Was it just solely a golden civilization, or did you mix in with a few other speakers on the day as such?
It was strictly a golden civilization. It was like an
golden civilization, which is good to hear, because that's easier to focus on and arrange as well, of course.
Exactly. And I'm trying to think of the others that there have been a number of others, and I'm trying to think whether they were done midday or in the evening. I think some of them have been done midday because people are in lockdown, and so it's easier for them to take an hour or two out. The one that I did in New York was a 3-hour. I've done them as short as an hour, but that's pressing it a bit for time. But always people have loved them. And we could strategize more in groups like this. You could take the lead on strategizing, and everybody learns from anybody strategizing how to bring it into their group. So a client group is a great, you could just offer it. Not everybody has to come, but here's what we're doing. Absolutely. And you could say we're life planning civilization, because by now they probably know what life planning is from you, probably. I don't know, but then say we're life planning civilization.
Absolutely, George,
And this is wonderful. And there's no reason not to invite some of your professional colleagues as well.
And even contacts.
To intermingle and all of that. So think about it. My recommendation would be to have it as a 2-hour event.
George, sounds like a great opportunity, Okay.
You're breaking up a bit.
It sounds great, and sorry, are we okay now? Back
right now?
Sorry, guys, we're back now. Sorry, excuse me. The line seems to be a bit up and down. For those clients that I haven't spoken to directly on life planning, they're all fully aware. So we've a lot of ongoing marketing, newsletters, podcasts. So I hope that I would have a very captive audience there to say, I'd love to learn more, even though maybe I might not have spoke to Rory directly. They hopefully want to learn more. So sounds like a great idea, George.
Fantastic. And it would be exciting for us as well to participate. For those of us in America who you might invite, including us and Mary and all, it'd be exciting for us to come and experience what would be predominantly probably a Dublin, certainly predominantly an Irish event.
Yes, you're right.
To experience what your community feels about a golden civilization, what would make it, and what action steps they're ready to take. It's always compelling, Rory. So So anyway, be happy to.
That's great, George. I'll maybe link in with Natalie here in the next couple of days.
Yeah, that'd be great.
And see how we go about organising such an event, and yeah, go from there. It sounds great.
Think about like Rene was talking about earlier, think about a follow-up event a month later, something like that, so that there is some ongoing, so you see some development and some building of this. And then I think you'll find real results. Otherwise, it's just a nice experience and on the
one-off. I know.
So yeah, connect with Natalie and Laura will be back in 10 days or so, and I'm sure she'd be very excited to connect as well. Yeah.
Can I
okay, guys. I look forward to it.
Great. Rene, yes, Rene, before Miriam, just a quick comment.
Just a quick one. I've planned a Golden Civilization workshop, is what I call it, with a public school here in my city. Woo! And it's kind of open university, it's called.
Yep.
And it's normally they give things like language courses, to be a bit knitting, cooking with mushrooms, all kinds of creative courses. But when I talked to them about this, they were very enthusiastic, and we actually planned the course to be 2 evenings with 2 months separation in between.
Fantastic.
So
you want to go all the way through to commitments in the first one, and so that it has a full cycle.
Yeah.
Wow, fantastic. And will you be doing it by Zoom, or will you be doing it in person, Rene?
Well, as it stands at the moment, it's in person. They have large classrooms and small groups, so that would be okay. We'll see what COVID brings to the mix.
And what town are you in? What town? What city are you in?
Oh, Hengelo. I don't know if you. It's.
No, I don't think I've been.
Enschede, Hengelo, Almelo. There's 3 cities in the middle of Holland on the east side. So in the middle, in respect to Amsterdam, it's in the same line as Amsterdam.
Same line. And
then all the way to the east.
So near north of Eindhoven, is that?
Oh yeah, very much north of Eindhoven.
Okay. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Very good.
It's north of Arnhem.
Okay. Oh yeah, I've been to Arnhem, I think, and wonderful. Oh, that's very exciting. And again, let us know, keep us posted as to how we can help.
Sure,
We're happy to help you structure it and think it through, particularly in this kind of environment where we have everybody feeding off and learning from each other. That's wonderful, Rene. Wonderful. Very exciting.
Yeah, it is.
Very exciting. I'm thrilled. Good. And I know you're leaving in a half an hour to join my wife and this other community, and I'll join you in an hour or so.
Yeah.
But
so I hope you forgive me for just leaving without saying anything, so that I don't disturb anybody.
We will. I was just letting everybody else know. Just in
George,
yes.
Sorry guys, I know Miriam, you want to talk here. I have to go at 6 p.m. here as well to bring my daughter football training.
Oh, okay. But you're here for the next half hour. I think
I'm here for the next 30 minutes.
Good, because I think Miriam has a lot to say.
I'm going to sit back and listen to Miriam now.
Maybe not. Well, I've got a lot to learn from her. I know that from what I've heard from Laura and Natalie. Miriam, do you want to unmute yourself and just welcome? I'm so glad you're here. And I'm sorry Gary and Mike weren't able to come. But
hi, thank you so much for welcoming me so warmly. And it's really nice to meet all of you. And George, I'm based in London, but I have Boston roots. So I grew up in Boston.
No!
Recently lived in Lexington. So I think not far from you.
Oh my goodness.
And Rory, when I go to Dublin, it really, like all the faces look familiar because it looks like Boston faces.
It looks like Boston.
So it makes me feel at home, that's for sure.
Oh, Miriam, you know, I spend a lot of time in London, except this year, of course. You've heard that, I'm sure. My favorite place, and wow, I had no idea.
Yeah, tough place to be away from. But Boston and London are 2 of my favorite cities, and I am missing Boston, I have to admit.
Are you? Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, the
yeah.
colors are just beginning to turn.
Absolutely.
I'm out a half hour, 40 minutes, 45 minutes, and we're on a pond. So on the pond, of course, you get that color turn early.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, it's something.
Perfect.
Yeah. So where are you in London?
I'm in Islington, which is central
no,
London.
I know Islington very well. And lovely, wonderful theater in Islington.
Yes, the Almeida Theater is about a 3-minute walk from my flat.
I've walked to
so
it
it's perfect.
many times from either the Islington or the Angel Station.
Yep.
Many times. So, well, you're lucky there, except it's probably not happening right now.
True, but it will again. It will
Yeah.
again. All
Well,
things.
awfully good to know that you're
things
there,
do work
because
out.
when I come back, maybe we can say hi.
Absolutely.
Either in Islington, I often stay in the more center west, in either the Mayfair or just north of Mayfair, Marylebone area.
Marylebone, yep.
I like to stay near the
Perfect.
parks. But how wonderful! I love Islington.
Lovely.
So Miriam, would it be all right to share why you're here at least?
Sure. So I am part of a startup that has been running for about a year, and it's called Equip, and its mission is to create workplaces for the future with inclusive tools that give every employee a voice. The way my co-founders and I think about it is that we're all born the same, but we don't get to start at the same place. And so starting in the workplace, we think that we can make a difference to that. And that really is helping to encourage inclusive, transparent, and consistent communication from all parties in an organization, using behavioral science and using little nudges to help people to feel like they can trust the organization and they can trust their peers, and basically helping companies build culture, which obviously helps them with agility and productivity and retention and inclusion and all of those good things. I came to this after many decades of senior leadership in retail organizations. So 21 years at TJX, which is TJ Maxx and Marshalls in the US, and 15 years working for a few different businesses here in London, including eBay and Net-a-Porter. And as we found out from Laura and Natalie more about the work that you're doing, it really does seem like it's aligned. We believe that we are at an inflection point right now where people are looking for intentional communities, and people are on a journey toward wholeness, whoever they are, and all of a sudden the worlds of work and personal, those walls are now porous. And so we've found real interest from many people in trying to figure out what are the ways that I can bring together my life holistically. And one of the things that we do, in addition to building our platform and selling out our platform, but as a service, we've been running anti-racism self-education workshops on a weekly basis that people sign up for a period of 8 weeks, where there's sort of an hour of preparation and then real serious self-reflection, role modeling, and real ability to help people to tackle the racism within and around them. And it's been a real rewarding experience in seeing executives from all walks of life, so mostly white and privileged people, being willing to have these conversations out in the open. And I actually think that doing this virtually in a way has created a certain kind of intimacy that we wouldn't be able to have otherwise. And we've also had to have a pause on the busyness of our lives. And I think that's one of the reasons that there's space for people to do this as well. So I found out about what you guys were doing, and I was hugely interested, and I have really no preconceived notions of what it might be or how I might be involved, but I knew I wanted to learn more. So that's why I'm here.
Yeah, wonderful, wonderful, Miriam. And I've got a bookcase up here, and I just want to show you something. My wife, who Renee is about to join because she's teaching a mindfulness class with me that I'll be a half hour late for. But my wife's company for many years was in Lexington. And I think originally it was in Cambridge, but moved out to Lexington. This is her book.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, and it's a very good book. And the only problem with it's really good. It's a really interesting leadership book, given that you're interested in leadership.
Yeah.
The only problem that she gets embarrassed by is that, you know, when she wrote it, she was quoting two people who we revered quite a bit. One of them was Aung San Suu Kyi in Burma,
Yeah, sure.
who's now turned to the
Yep.
other side, it seems like.
Yep.
And the other one, believe it or not, was Rudy Giuliani. And so she has these incredibly wonderful leadership quotes from them both. And now we're going, oh my God. But it's a wonderful book. You'll like it. And she's, her company was a global company. And Rene would be interested in this because he's just about to meet her. But many, many workshops in England, did much more work with the kind of organizations that you've grown through, large Fortune 500 companies. She also worked with major governments all over the world and major nonprofits. But anyway, you'll like the book, and awfully, gosh, so nice to meet you. And let's see, we can figure out what we think. And I would agree in terms of our work virtually. It's been very interesting doing all this virtually, because there's something, everybody's in the safety of their own home, of their own office. With a touch of a button, they can mute or unvideo or disappear. But also they're eyeball to eyeball with everybody. And I think we found this, we have one workshop that's a very intimate workshop that I know Rory's been to, and maybe Rene has been to as well. Have you been to the 5-day Evoke training, Rene? You're on mute, so I don't know.
Yes,
you have.
I've done the 2-day, the 5-day, and the whole
and the mentorship. Right. So it's very, very intimate. But what we're discovering is with Zoom, there's a whole new layer of intimacy because you see everybody eyeball to eyeball. You know, I mean, I'm sure you have that. So anyway, I'd love to go through the structure of a Golden Civilization conversation to give you a flavor of it. And let me see if Martin or Jonathan have anything they want to add before we do that. Martin's been here a fair amount. You're on mute. I muted you, Martin. Yeah. I can't tell whether he's going to say something or not. Oh, he's putting out.
But I think a very goodie. Are we all familiar with this?
The Precious Present? No, Spencer.
Yeah, it's the book was published about 15 years ago, but I occasionally crack it, and essentially what it says is be here now. Happiness is only found in the present, and it's something that, of all people, I forget that all the time because being a financial guy, I tend to be tremendously future-oriented, and this helps me to go back to here now. There's nothing else. When I meet with people, I try to really not think about anything else, not think about what's for dinner, and not how the market's doing or anything else along that matter. So I just sent it to a whole bunch of clients last week, and I had this one client who was a CPA who was more analytic than I am, and she sent me just this really, really wonderful card and letter back. And this is the most she has, I'm not going to read it to you, but this is the most she has ever shared with me. And I was blown away by that, quite frankly. So
Yeah.
that's
Wonderful, wonderful, Martin. Well, it brings me to the one aspect of the, if you don't mind, I'm going to play off that.
Please.
And it brings me to one aspect of the Golden Civilization conversation. And Natalie, I wonder if you could just share the PowerPoint for a moment so everybody's just familiar. And then Rene and Rory, this is, you may be aware of this, but you may not. You probably are. Let's go, no, just to the three charts. That's it right there. So you'll see that a Golden Civilization conversation is just extremely simple. And it starts with the vision. We get everybody to bring that vision in. We've already talked today a bit about the inner obstacles versus the outer obstacles, and we get that out. So we go from this incredible high of a vision that's inspiring down into the darkness again, and then out from that into action, into energy. And those actions are, first of all, actions that we think, you know, the government might take, or leadership might take, or the institution that we're embedded in might take. But then we go from that kind of out there, almost codependent, they should do this, to the commitments of, okay, so what are you willing to do between now, and this would be good, Rene, as you're doing the 2-month period, and Rory, as you're setting up your second meeting, maybe a month later, what are you willing to commit to do between now and our next meeting to deliver, either to deliver the Golden Civilization, that vision, or to solve the obstacles? What's your commitment between then and now? And I've always been a soft sell guy, not a hard sell. I suppose you could do this as a hard sell and get everybody to speak, but I pretty much let people respond. And usually there's a friendly or two voice, and once those voices start, other people pitch in, which is wonderful. Sometimes I might seed it, or I might have someone else in, like Natalie might be there, and there might be someone there that I know who's willing to make that kind of commitment. I know, because sometimes people are a little shy, but usually it begins to ripple. And those commitments at the end are what take it out away from just a kind of bull session. And Natalie, we can go back to the full group. What take it out of just a bull session, or a dining room, a dinner party, take us out from those kinds of sessions to a session that is actually inspiring and energizing. And this is one of the key differences, because we can talk about the terrible problems that exist in the world, and we can focus on one. And right now in America, we're getting more and more focused on one in particular, but there are so many that we could hang out around almost any of them. But, and at the end, you feel, if you've come together with a group that you can talk to, you feel like you've built a little bit of a community. But at the same time, there's a little bit of a taint to it, because you feel tainted, because you feel like, well, where did we get? Did we get to anywhere? Are we going to do anything? So having these commitments at the end and having an inspiring vision at the beginning makes the conversation sing and have a dynamic nature to it. And that's the reason it works. And Rene and Rory and Martin, you know this from life planning, that's how life planning works, is you create an incredible vision, you take people down to their obstacles, and then you move right to actions. And that energizes people to make a difference very quickly and energetically in their individual lives. And now they're doing it in community. So the wonderful thing, Rene and Rory, as you're planning and plotting your events, is that you're actually creating an environment where a community can take off the way you've seen your individual clients take off. And one of the things we encourage is we encourage differences. So if people want to do, say, a market-based solution, other people want to corporate, people want a government solution. Other people, as Rene, you were finding, want a spiritual solution. We don't hierarchy the experience. We allow, it's like, I think of it as participative democracy. And there may be little subsets that form communities around passions. Like in your group, Rene, you'd have that whole group forming a passion around spiritual, and maybe they join together around that. But then some people are off on their own, doing, working with the homeless in their particular area. So I think that's inspiring to the community, that it's not hierarchical. So it's something just to keep in mind. And I pretty much never chastise, I never argue, it's like we have people who say communism in the golden civilization, and we have people who say capitalism in the golden civilization. And I don't stigmatize either. And similarly in obstacles, we'll have people saying capitalism. That's pretty obvious right now. That's happening a lot. But we'll also have people saying communism, and I don't stigmatize those either. I just put them down. There may be energy around it. And my notion is that there's some energies where we want the collaborative force, and some energies where we want entrepreneurial force. Where people have their energy, let's let them go, as long as it's not villainous, as long as it's not really horrific. I want to support it. So Miriam, you brought up racism, and I know that's a major theme in a lot of what you're doing, and inclusiveness. So if we find that someone is really sharply, antagonistic in some way, well, I'm gonna say something. But otherwise, I'm trying to work within the structure, because people are at different layers in conquering racism inside themselves. And so I try to keep it open, a place where people can learn from each other and be inspired by each other. So that's, I don't know if anyone wants to add something. What I wanted to do by sharing this structure was just so Miriam could recall what the structure is and how it works. And I wanted to come back to the spiritual, that in fact, we start every hour and a half, hour, 2 hour, 3 hour session with, some people will probably just do it as a moment, and we might just do it as a moment now since I've passed it by, but we start with a moment of very quiet inner reflection. And part of our notion is, and one of the things that Miriam's group's very exciting, and is they're about the human and humane and humanity. And one of the things that we think is that without touching into that interior space, whether you call it spiritual, some people will be explicitly religious, other people it's values, without touching into that quiet space that's deep for everyone, politics tends to fall into arguments and conflict and antagonism and polarization. So we always start with, usually I do 5 minutes of meditation. If they're a group of mindfulness, I do a secular thing. If it's a group that is very familiar with mindfulness, Rene, or very familiar, they've already said spiritual is really important, and they share a spiritual tradition, I might go 15 minutes just to get them really, really grounded in it. And then as we come out of that quiet space, one of the things that I do that I think is pretty cool in regard to, now, how do you come out from interior into external? Well, a lot of people think that, like with mindfulness practice, what they're doing is coming back to the present moment. And that's true, that's one of the things they're doing. They think they're getting better focus. And again, that's one of the things they're doing. But they're also doing a bunch of things that have more spirit or more value or more character inside them, that lend strength and support and resilience and stability to a community conversation. So what, for instance, we're doing when we keep coming back to that present moment is we're listening. we're practicing patience with our own wandering mind. There's a way, just to bring more of a spiritual thing in, where we're practicing forgiveness when we come up with something that's a little antagonistic and we just drop it. There's a way in which we're practicing kindness to ourselves by coming back from wherever we wander. There's a way in which we're practicing tranquility, equanimity, generosity, all of these things. And so at the end of that 5 minutes or 15 minutes, I'll take a minute and I'll just say, notice how you were developing these qualities inside yourself as you were doing this quiet space observation. And so as you come out now into an engagement with each other around something that can often be problematic, charged with energy, and occasionally polarized, I want you to keep in mind that these qualities of inner listening that you've been using, you want now to bring to each other and to whatever is raised, to let go of the charge if it ever feels charged, and come back to being in a space where you can hold the other person in their humanity. Again, coming back to Miriam's term in their humanity, and continue to engage around the structure. And so to bring that character, that virtue, those values into at the very beginning. And Rene, with your group, it's wonderful. Bring the spirit in at the very beginning, because that's the layer that they found was most compelling. I think will deepen and strengthen that ongoing conversation. But in general, it means that we're holding each other in a more forgiving, open space than certainly in the politics of today in America. And I've used this in America. We've got red states and blue states. They aren't the same as what it means in England. But so I've used it in varieties and in places where there's a mix. And it's worked in every culture. There's never been a battle that's come out of this conversation because of the structures and all. So I think I've talked a bit, and maybe I'll pause and see if there are questions or comments. Maybe first from Rory and Rene, who I know are leaving in 5 minutes, or if you have anything to reflect on that Miriam shared, and then anyone else that would like to.
No, I would like to say goodbye for now, because I have to do a bit of pausing before going into the other meeting. So,
well, Rene, awfully nice to meet you, and I know I'll see you in a half hour or so again.
okay.
It's a wonderful community that you're joining there. That's all over the world, because we timed it so it could include Europe, but it goes all the way to Hawaii. So
Nice.
and occasionally we've got people coming in from India at a very odd hour for themselves at night. So enjoy. Thank you. Very nice to meet you. And at last.
At last.
And really, I can feel the connection as Miriam was talking about the Zoom. You don't feel it in quite the same way as when there's the physicality, the breathing into each other's space, the warmth of the body that somehow meets the air in between you. But there's a way in which you feel more connected. And I just want to acknowledge that I feel your heart, man. And it's just wonderful to be here with you and to know that you're passionate about this work on golden civilization.
Thank you, George.
Yeah.
I know I'm not as good an English word magician as you are, but the feeling is mutual.
Wonderful, wonderful.
Okay, bye-bye.
We'll see you soon. Thank you so much.
Bye-bye.
Yeah. And Rory, anything you want to add before you?
Martin, lovely to see you again. I know we've been on these sessions a couple of times over the last few months. Miriam, lovely to meet you. And it was great to meet Rene there. I was just thinking there, George, as you were talking, what a wonderful day to finish off my working day. As I said, I missed 3 weeks ago and I was kicking myself. So it really is like to be part of this group, this community, to see the potential of where it's going to go, George. And thank you so much for answering my questions. And the more I think about it, if I'm able to bring life planning in the financial arena to more and more of my existing clients, isn't it absolutely fantastic that I can go on potentially to create that community within these very valued clients? Like, these are clients that I'm working with for the last, 10 years. I would like to think that I will have a relationship with them for the next 20 years and beyond. And if I can bring more and more value and meaning in their lives with life planning, and then on another level of golden civilization, that sounds good to me.
Well, just one other thought as you share that, Rory, and that is that oftentimes we add, I mean, in a way, there's a chain letter kind of effect that we're aiming at here, because what is lovely is with that group, if you have an ongoing group, to have them do what Rene just did with that group of 4 people. So each one of them have their own group. They'd come back to your group as the central group, but each of them would also start a group. So they could see that impact spreading out through their community and making a difference. And that would be extraordinary. And what's wonderful about
that would be amazing.
What's extraordinary about your client base is they come from all different walks of life. So you get that whole, the whole specter of Dublin society in that, in your engagement. So thank you, Rory.
That's it. And thank you all. And I look forward to, George, Natalie, I look forward to discovering more options.
Yeah, wonderful, wonderful. Thank you. Thanks so much, Rory. All right.
Guys, I'll leave you and I'll talk to you soon.
Very good. Thank you.
See you. Bye-bye.
So Miriam and Martin, I'm happy to go dive deeper into the structure, or Miriam, there may be things going on because I know your focus is really on communication and conversation, much as ours is. And what I love about what you shared a minute ago is, I mean, my vision coming out of what you were sharing is a vision of, as Rene was saying earlier, you might have missed it at the beginning, of building within these structures, these institutional structures, something that is transformative of that structure. And the only question that I have is, can it overpower the Milton Friedman profit motive, kind of imposition that we have even in legal structures in America? And that's why I'm also working on, I have a fiduciary standard that I'm now promoting that would shift all of that to much more what you're talking about, the stakeholders and caring for the community. But anyway, did you have any thoughts?
Well, it's funny that you should mention that, because certainly in Europe, I think Germany is ahead of the rest of Europe, and certainly UK is going the same direction, that the bigger the company is, the more that it needs to prove that they are listening to the rank and file. They're listening to everyone. And so I don't think that organizational listening is the be all and end all, but it is the place to start. And it's the place to start to feel everyone's humanity. And, it's certainly something that since the pandemic, people who are in roles that we now call essential, that before we didn't even notice that they were really human beings, that has absolutely changed. And I believe that we are, for all of the difficult, a tragic loss of life and difficulty for the economy, I do think that we are at an inflection point in terms of how we think about how to be in the workplace and how to create businesses that are good stewards for not only their shareholders, but also for their people. And I don't know what that looks like, but I think that listening is an important first step.
Fantastic. And Miriam, I have, as you're talking, I'm realizing I have a couple of connections, maybe 3 connections that stand out in my mind that
Okay.
live within an hour's walk of you.
Okay.
And so let me just mention them to you in case you're at all intrigued. So the longest ongoing golden civilization communication conversation that's happening in the world today started on Primrose Hill and is continuing there. And the leader of that group, the facilitator, is a man named Julian Powell, Julian Powe. And Natalie, I'll ask you if you can send to Miriam at the end, maybe these 3 connections I'm about to give. So Julian, in that golden civilization conversation, I met Julian because he and I facilitated for a large financial services company in England, our life planning work. And it was astonishing to me because I hadn't had a chance to train him, but he had the connection to the organization through the Trusted Advisor Network. Do you know them at all in America?
Yep.
So they're close friends they've been close friends with both Kathy, my wife, and with me, and with Julian. And so they introduced Julian to me, knowing that my work was perfect for this particular group. And I went in with Julian, and he was just brilliant because he was so used to facilitating in an organizational structure. So he caught on quickly to our work. Normally it takes a year or 2 of training to do it in an organizational structure. So Julian Powell is his name. And what he did, many of his friends are also institutional facilitators internationally, corporate and governmental. And I think that your whole organization might have wonderful connections with Julian and his community. So what he felt out of our conversations together, and by the way, the other person talking about Primrose Hill that's quite wonderful in that group, and he's very odd. He's kind of your classic eccentric Brit. And his name is Tim Heath, and one of my favorite people over there. And I hope he doesn't mind me saying that he's odd. I think he'd probably go, well, yeah. But he's head of the Blake Society, the William Blake Society over there. And I think he also heads very quietly the Quakers over there. He's quite an extraordinary mind. But Julian is more connected to your work. And he brought into this community that we started together around Golden Civilization Conversations, he brought together a group of people who were facilitators, institutional facilitators. And the challenge that I threw out to them that they've taken off with and gone their own way with, but it's really quite wonderful, has to do with this question. One of my challenges when I get into a real strong corporate capitalist community, I'm giving a keynote or whatever, is if it's so great, and I agree, it's phenomenal what it's delivered over 250 years, but if it is so great, how is it that in that 250 years of development, capitalism hasn't by now automatically and systemically created at every new hierarchy of power, wisdom at the top and permeating all the way down? Why wouldn't it bring the best of humanity to the top and filter all the way down? Why is that? And so that's a challenging question that I ask wherever I go, and it leads into the fiduciary standard and all of that. But they took it up because they are institutional facilitators at multiple levels, and they thought, let's do it. And so what their passion has been, there's been a separate group that's formed outside of that, but with a bunch of them, with a woman named Jane as a Graukower, Natalie, do you recall? Something like that. But Jane, I'll introduce you to Jane as well. And so they've now got a group that's looking at how do you build institutional wisdom in the workplace. And it sounds very related to what you're talking about as well. They're certainly concerned about issues of inclusivity and racism and all of those kind of transparency and all of that. The other person who has come through a transparency network that I've been part of in the financial services industry a lot is a man working theoretically in the ESG community. And his name is Robert Dellner, Dellner, and he's just written a magnum opus playing off Ken Wilber's work on, kind of, but in more of an institutional and more of an ESG kind of format. So all three of these people, well, Jane actually is up in Yorkshire, but she connects a lot around Primrose Hill. But Robert and Julian are within a short walk of a vigorous walk of of where you are in Islington. So I don't know if they'd be useful or not, but you could even, just like what you're doing here, is join their group and just pop in, and they're wonderful. Wonderful.
Thank you.
Yeah, you bet.
It's really
You bet.
terrific.
And
I love that you make those connections.
Yeah. And you would love what they're doing, and they would love what you're doing. So really fabulous. And I don't know how our Golden Civilization could be part of what you're doing, but we think it could be part of any group because it kind of holds together the large frame. And then what are we doing here? So
I don't want to speak for Mike and Gary, but Mike and Gary, who unfortunately weren't able to meet with us today, other things came up. They've brought me into the Humans First community, which is really doing some wonderful things. And they've been going for a bit over a year. So I don't know if you've had a chance to take a look at that, but I think that it feels like there is real alignment in terms of purpose. Yes. And it would be interesting for Mike and Gary to connect with you and to see what opportunities there might be to share.
Yeah, that'd be wonderful and always open. And we view our model as something that can go anywhere and anyone can use it. It's kind of open source technology as far as we're concerned around it. And we're here to support that. So the only place where we have our, kind of our profit motive is around the life planning for financial advisors, where we're training them to actually work with individual clients. And that's, but the Golden Civilization model is a wonderful one to spread. What else? Natalie, is there anything you want to add?
I don't have anything to add. I mean, we can definitely, Miriam, reach out to connect with Gary and Mike and see if we can schedule something soon.
That would be great.
Yeah, but I mean, Martin, I know we haven't heard much from you yet. Do you have anything?
Yeah, I spoke up a few times and then I noticed I was still muted, so sorry about that. So I want to say this. So I am very, very pleased to be here, and it's just as if by magic the Golden Civilization appeared in my life, because what's that old saying? When the student is ready, the teacher will appear. That's certainly true in my case. So I've been a financial advisor for longer than I care to remember, and I have all this education, all finance related. And over time, I've come to believe when I meet with clients, help them with their finances, that more analytics, more graphs, we dive deeper in the numbers. Until about a year or two, I realized that is absolutely not the case. Numbers are required, but by themselves, they are not important. For the longest time, I thought what people wanted from me is analysis and options. Should we do A, B, or C? I have since come to the realization that is not the case at all. What people want, what my clients want, what people that I speak with about their financial needs is leadership. They want to get to a point that they say, okay, I like this guy, I trust this guy. Tell me where to go. Not in so many words, but I brought up this this woman client who's a high-powered alpha female C-level executive. She's a CPA and extremely intelligent. Frankly, I'm a little bit intimidated by her because she's so clever. But I thought there was more. I wanted to help her with other parts of her life that she's struggling with a little bit. She would never admit that, but she is. So she is the person that I sent this book to, and then she sent this incredibly personal note back to me, thanking me. I'm not going to read it or anything, but and said, this is exactly what I needed. These are the types of books that I need to read. So for me, that confirmed that for people like me, what we need to do is, I think George used the word, we need to be anchors and we need to be beacons and we need to have leadership. We need to provide leadership. The second part of the story is my wife, Barbara, is big in the Los Angeles mindfulness community. And the leadership is crumbling before her very eyes. Nobody's picking up on that. And just yesterday, she was talking to me about it. So I said, it sounds like you feel really deeply about this. She said, yeah, I can't believe. I said, maybe it's time for you to step up. When you feel strongly about this and you've been meditating for 25 years, and I think you're a wonderful and wise person, how about you step up? I mean, you got the time to do it. And she said, well, I can't do it. I said, yeah, you can. Yeah, you can. So as I was speaking to her, I realized I'm also speaking to myself, because I'm both excited and somewhat nervous about it to step up to this role, because I'm a deeply introverted kind of guy. I'm kind of afraid, but I can do it. I can do it. I just need to take a couple deep breaths and then I can step up. I can do it. So as I was talking to her about assuming leadership, step to the front of the class, I think I need to do it too, and I have. So I'm now to the point, I talked about golden civilization to my friends. Richard Harmel joined our group, which I think a great addition, and some other people too. So I am starting to live and breathe and really try to incorporate everything I've learned. And thank you for sharing this all with me. I'm trying to incorporate all this in my practice, because I want them to merge. I want my personal and professional life to be one. I don't want separate spheres. It should be one. It should be what I believe. All right, that's my story.
So Martin, I just want to ask one thing, because you've been kind of almost tiptoeing around the possibility now for a number of meetings, and I'm wondering if you're ready to make a commitment, actually, to and again, usually I don't push on this, but you've been here so much, to make a commitment to actually gathering a group of people together from your intermingling of the financial world and your personal world, and make a golden civilization conversation happen with the 3 charts and all of that. And if we could help you with that.
You absolutely can. And I should also mention that I have just started a major, because I want to grow my business as well. And I've just started a major LinkedIn campaign, and I have started to go on LinkedIn and talk about these types of things, because I think I probably mentioned that my wife is a psychologist. She said, enough of this financial stuff. Help people with their financial lives, but focus a little, be a therapist, financial therapist instead. So I am ready, willing, and able, I think, to make this into one. I want that to be part of my gestalt as a helper, not so much I am a financial guy. And I think everybody in life has a gift or a calling. And in my case is to be a financial helper. And I adore my job. I get a lot of satisfaction. When people send me this, I cry, because it's just exactly what, it just doesn't get better than that. So yeah, so I'm ready, willing, and open to take your guidance, George, and incorporate it as part of my life.
Wonderful. We'd love to support that, and we know what a great mind you have, and what incredible books you've shared with us over these last few months that we're also very resonant with. So maybe we can find some way with Natalie to put something together.
That would be great. Thank you for that.
Lovely. Thank you.
Right. Great.
Thank you. And let's just see. I don't know if Jonathan has anything to add around it looks like he was involved with something else. So the video went off. But if he has anything to share around the golden civilization, and if not, well.
Hi, I would love to. I really appreciate you letting me audit the call. My video's not on. I guess my video's not on, but I really am grateful for your letting me audit this session. I really think that the work that you're doing is magnificent, and I really appreciate your collective energy. Particularly, I appreciate the universe of people that are in financial services that are trying to bring some of your principles to the fore. So kudos.
Yeah, wonderful. Thank you, Jonathan. Nice to see you again. And hi to our mutual friends. Thank you. Yeah, great. So let me just go back to Miriam and just see if there's anything else you would like to see from the structure of the Golden Civilization conversation, or if we have at most 10 minutes left. Is there anything at all you'd like to?
I guess for me, what I would, it sounds like you hold lots of diversity of thought and diversity of approach inside what you're doing. I would love to know if there are some things for which you are unequivocal about. Are there any core values, any glowing coals that are at the heart of what you're doing? And and you know, sort of the community is often created at the boundaries.
Yeah.
So where are the boundaries?
Yeah. So we don't have, you know, kind of a vision statement, a mission statement. We don't have a list of values. But there was one thing we were inspired by that my friend Julian Powell, who is in the Primrose Hill that we're connecting you with, that he did in the first group that he made of a golden civilization. That is that he put together, out of that circle of vision, he put together kind of a statement of if, as a consequence of our work together, we were to deliver this world, this golden civilization that you've just described, how would that be? And that's a familiar structure to life planning. And he put it, and we now have that, Natalie, we have it, I know we have it on the Facebook Golden Civilization group site. Do we have it also on the goldencivilization.com site? We have it there as well. So you'll see that. But I think that now, as I'm just kind of talking my way through this, I think that probably the main thing we have is a belief in the structure. That the structure leads to inspired action and leads to a better world. So I think that that's probably the main thing that we have, that we've seen it happen. It's pretty much never failed. We've done it with, it's been done with tens of thousands, maybe hundreds of thousands of individual people all over the world in cultures, 30 different countries on 6 continents all over the world. So we find that that people, when they can identify their vision and we give them room to go deep with that vision, that they come up with extraordinary things. And pardon me, the phone, I can't I can't stop it, unfortunately. But they come up with extraordinary things. And then when we go to the obstacles, they knock them away. They just deliver it because they're so inspired by the vision. So I think that that's probably the main understanding. And as we've moved to community with this, I think our added value is that it's time for community to do this same thing. And that what we found in political circles is we found a kind of codependency, I mentioned that earlier, between us and our elected representatives. And then, you know, whether they're the ones we were rooting for or the ones we were against, you know, we feel kind of diminished over time and no longer have that connection. And so what are, I think part of perhaps the other value that's unspoken is it's time globally, and Zoom is added to this. It's time, I was on a world tour when the virus hit, but Zoom has meant we can communicate across cultures so much more easily, that it's time for all of us to join together and make the kind of work you're doing in individual institutions happen in every culture and across cultures, and inspire leadership everywhere, but from the grassroots. So there's a real belief in the grassroots in this particular process as well. If I'm looking at what the overriding, that's a really interesting question to me, Miriam. But as I think of what the overriding themes are, and I think the one other theme around that has to do with what's happening culturally. There was an extraordinary thing that happened not far from Lexington. It happened in Westford in early March. So before George Floyd, I was giving Golden Civilization conversations over there, I think first to the women at a senior center and then to the men. And I remember walking into the men's group, senior center, 40 of them, and looking, and they were every one of them white, and at least as old as I am, and older. And I went, you know, internally, I went, yikes, you know, because, you know, Massachusetts is a liberal state, but the further you get beyond 128, the more conservative it is. And out there, we know in the country, it can be quite conservative, quite redneck. So when I gave the conversation and we got to obstacles, what the obstacles, again, anger and fear, fear and greed came up, prejudice, and a number of other things, institutional politics, all the things. And I said, let's vote on this. I was stunned. What they voted for overwhelmingly, the majority of them voted as the number one obstacle to a golden civilization was racism.
It's really interesting.
I was so stunned. I just, so when George Floyd, when it happened, I knew that something huge was about to happen, because if this is happening amongst a bunch of white old guys on the edge of, you know, conservative, liberal, whatever, purple out there, then there's something happening. So what I realized with COVID, we see it with the environment as well. You're seeing it across boundaries with tax havens and everything from institutions. How do we get institutions so that they actually don't just fall into the Milton Friedman, well, we'll just go someplace else to do our for-profit motive? It's time for us to act globally is the other thing that seems a value, that we act globally and locally at the same time. So
it also sounds, if thank you, it's really, really helpful to understand. It also sounds like you hold the duality of both individual personal improvement and a value that we have a pursuit to a bias towards action that is going to help a community. And so holding individual and community together at the same time sounds like it's one of the natural, it is one of the natural tensions.
Yeah, it is.
for our lives. But it sounds like those are things that you're actually, this relentless pursuit of improvement is working towards both. It
Yes.
sounds like.
Absolutely. I mean,
Yeah.
just you may not know this about me, but I've taught mindfulness for 35 years. I've been a mindfulness practitioner, probably average 3 hours a day for 50 years. So
Wow.
so the internal stuff is very important to me, but what you see a lot is the external coming out of it. Yeah.
I didn't know that about you. I didn't. What is it about Massachusetts has this mindfulness thing going on, right?
It does. Yeah. Yeah.
It's not a bad thing. Not a
Not a
bad
bad
thing at
thing.
all.
Not a bad thing. John Kabat-Zinn. We have the
There you
centers
go.
out in Barrie and all of that. It's huge in Massachusetts.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, John Kabat-Zinn lived in Lexington, and
I know.
of course, his father-in-law being Howard Zinn. It was like, at one point I thought, like, what does this family's dinner table conversations look like?
Yes. John Kabat-Zinn was a client of I did a tax firm, and he was a client, unfortunately not of mine, but of my partner. I mean, I started the firm, so I knew all about. But anyway, and I was wondering.
Very cool.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Wonderful.
George, as I was saying, last thing, and then I'll quit talking. I saw an interview with the Dalai Lama a couple of months ago, and people were bemoaning that, and he said, I might be the last one.
Yeah.
He said, that's why, and the people said, well, what are we going to do next? He said, well, the Sangha
It's us.
is what is next.
That's
And the
right.
Sangha is the community, which is what you're trying to do here. As I encouraged my wife yesterday, I said, maybe you should stand up. I mean,
Yeah.
you've been doing it longer or as long as anybody else. You got this wonderful skill set. And she said, well, I can't do that. I said, I feel the same thing in my job. I don't really necessarily want to, but I have a responsibility. We lead a life of privilege. Well, that's the responsibility that comes with it. So,
Lovely. And I've got to run because I've got this other Zoom call going right on, but I love what you're saying and feel it very strongly. And maybe that's another value to speak to Miriam about, that the leadership, that it's all of us as leaders.
right.
It's
We have
time for that. It's time for that. And
Right.
that's one of the ways that inclusivity, to me, it's the only way that inclusivity really works, is that all of us have a voice.
Right.
And there's no bias in this inclusivity, and that's what makes it a beautiful thing. And
Right.
so participative democracy means a huge amount to me as a structure. Martin, thank you for your brilliance. Miriam, so
Thank you all.
wonderful to meet
Thank
you.
So
you,
nice
Miriam.
to meet you, Martin.
Good to meet you.
Natalie, it's great to see you again.
You too.
Take care,
Natalie,
guys.
good to see you, and I'll see you